a bit of a contrarian, and just a realist. During Jordan's era, you could publicly criticize Michael Jordan.
Yes.
I did it. I did it. I was a prominent national sports columnist in Kansas City, on ESPN, on Fox Sports, and I would criticize Jordan publicly. And and part of it was a bias. I had an extreme bias because I was a Pacer fan, just growing up as a kid. And so
say what you want about Mr. Jason Whitlock. I know a lot of his takes have been polarizing over the years, especially whenever he was working at ESPN. And just when you thought it was no hope for Mr. Whitlock and he was going to stay on the pathway of the narratives that his employer, ESPN, were pushing out into the world, he decides to depart from ESPN and go towards the pathway of telling the truth. Like whenever he exposed the parent company of ESPN, Disney, back in 2022, and let the world know that they are pushing narratives to feminize male sports. Pretty much the agenda to demasculinize men, which I had to applaud Mr. Whitlock for. As much as I could not tolerate his takes on ESPN, he started to let us know that the truth is somewhere deep down inside of him, and he was just doing it all for a check. But on the other hand, he could just be butthurt and out for vengeance because ESPN let him go, so he's trying to destroy any credibility that they have. Now, is that admirable or weasel-like? I'll leave that up for y'all to decide. But Mr. Whitlock's latest response is more than groundbreaking in my personal opinion and bigger than everything. Jason just shocked the world by exposing one of the biggest athletes on the planet and what ESPN is doing to push a narrative to keep that man on top. Now, it started out like this. Gilbert Arenas on his Gil's Arena podcast decided to speak on the Michael Jordan and LeBron James debate. And Gilbert Arenas hinted at a few things that were honestly highly disrespectful towards the greatest player to ever play the game, and Michael Jordan. He tried to hint that Michael Jordan was messing with some type of steroid due to the fact that Michael Jordan played all 82 games during his Wizard days at almost age 40 and averaged 20 points per game, which is truly contradicting coming out of that man Gilbert Arenas' mouth, because he pushed the same narrative that ESPN pushed, that Michael Jordan was not good when he played for the Wizards, and that was a blemish on his career. And his second reasoning for why we should question Michael Jordan being on steroids is the fact that he claims Michael Jordan had hair, then came out bald, plus his hairline started to recede. I don't remember this, but those are questions that have been circulating around no other than LBJ's career since about the 2010s when he joined the Miami Heat. We all know that hairline kept going back and forth for about a decade, and that has been a big topic for about a decade. Not to mention the fact that there has been multiple reports coming out of Miami when he lived down there that a man named Rich came to an underground practice that creates these steroids to get a steroid for a man with the initials LJ, and everybody took that as being LeBron James. Not to mention, here recently, a UFC fighter went on a podcast and talked about the fact that him and LeBron James has the same doctor who creates these particular steroids for these men in their personal professions. So it's a lot of smoke around LeBron James and him taking steroids. Jason Whitlock decided to speak on this and discredit Gilbert Arenas. But that was not the biggest part of it all. The biggest part came in whenever Jason Whitlock felt like Gilbert Arenas is just trying to portray a narrative to destroy Michael Jordan and push up LeBron James, just like all of the media pundits and colorful analysts over there at ESPN. Such analysts as Kendrick Perkins and Shannon Sharp, as he exposed the fact that these two men were fighting over who was actually running the LeBron James fan club first. This man, Jason Whitlock, just exposed the entire narrative behind LeBron James and how he pays these media pundits to push a positive narrative on his name. I want y'all to really pay attention, because a lot of the stuff that he's going to say is very, very subtle, and you will miss it if you don't really listen. Now, I know I just said an earful, family, but he's going to react. We're going to chime in. We're going to see everything that's going on with this situation.
Early in his championship runs, I was sympathetic to Isaiah Thomas and the Detroit Pistons. And we were allowed, the Pistons were allowed to beat him up, and people in the media were allowed to beat up Jordan. And it wasn't until Michael Jordan retired that I was like, okay, I'm over it. He's better than Magic. You know, I want to give it up to him. And then I started celebrating Jordan once he retired. But as long as he was playing, the Pacer homer in me, and just, I wanted him to earn it.
Honestly, I got to give that man Jason Whitlock a round of applause for admitting that. Not too many colorful analysts would actually admit to the fact that they had a biasness towards any player in any sport. They wouldn't come out and admit that because that destroys their credibility. Now, everything you ever written, your whole career, your whole portfolio is actually BS. There's no credibility. You were biased. You're coming from a biased nature. Let's just be honest. But the fact that he let it be known that the media allowed them to take jabs at that man Jordan, destroy his career, diminish his accolades, and make him seem like this villain, that shows you how ESPN viewed Michael Jordan at this particular time, and still to this day.
But now there's this groupie mentality in the media where anybody that's pretty elite or at the top, it's like you can't criticize them. There's all this social media blowback. And also, because of the amount of money that LeBron James has been able to acquire thanks to the work of Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, LeBron is a media mogul.
Pause right there for 1 second because I want y'all to fully take in what he's about to say next. Really, really listen. Open your ears. And also, it gives new meaning to the fact that ESPN crowned LeBron James the chosen one. Chosen one for what? Chosen to dethrone Michael Jordan. They wanted to push him through the media to be better than Michael Jordan because they could not stand Michael Jordan. They looked at him like, look at this nigger taking over the entire world. Got everybody following after him. They even touched on the fact that Michael Jordan's shoes were being stolen. People were being shot and killed over Michael Jordan's shoes when they initially released because they were such a hit. And they blamed it on Michael Jordan as if he was the one who was actually out in the streets encouraging people to rob and kill and steal his shoes. It's crazy, right? But ESPN pushed that narrative. They touched on that in this particular podcast, but you know, we didn't really touch on that in this video. Just wanted to bring that up for a second. But like I said, really pay attention to what's going to be said next.
LeBron is a media mogul who pays surrogates to argue for him. LeBron is a media mogul who pays surrogates to argue for him. LeBron is a media mogul who pays surrogates to argue for him.
La Familia, please tell me that y'all just heard what this man said. Don't tell me y'all didn't hear that. Come on, y'all had to hear it. And this is an ex-ESPN analyst telling y'all, a star analyst telling y'all that LeBron James pays these analysts, these media pundits, these surrogates, if you will, as to what he said, to get on live TV and argue for him so he doesn't have to say it. They get on there and they ridicule anybody who has anything negative to say about LeBron James, on top of shoving down your throat every stat, everything he does to glorify the man, on top of letting you know constantly that he's the greatest player of all time, regurgitating that. It's literal brainwashing. So LeBron James pays these analysts to brainwash you on live television, something Michael Jordan never had to do. Michael Jordan never had to call himself the greatest. The world said it, while ESPN and other television networks alike, sport networks alike, told you that the man was rude, told you he liked to smoke cigars, and told you that he was a gambling addict, and that's probably what contributed towards his father's passing. A gambling addiction, an unpaid gambling addiction, even though he was the highest paid basketball player of all time up until that point, and he is one of the first NBA billionaires. So how did he get an unpaid gambling addiction and still make it to see $1 billion. I never understood that. Never made any sense to me. But that was the media shoving that down your throat and trying to big up this man, LeBron James. Ain't it crazy? But he's exposing that to y'all. And why is this going on? Well,
Michael Jordan, maybe Michael Wilbon and a couple other people had access to Jordan or whatever, but
there's your reason for why. He only allowed a select few to have access to him. And the media didn't like that. They took that as rude. You're this public icon, this superstar figure, and you won't even allow us to speak to you, even though we cover your league. But let him carry on.
It wasn't this payroll thing. It wasn't this payroll thing. It wasn't all these extracurricular benefits that you got from being a Michael Jordan worshiper. It wasn't all these extracurricular benefits that you got from being a Michael Jordan worshiper. And the critics were allowed to live and breathe and do their thing in the media.
Man, this man, hey, he breaking this shit down to pieces, ain't he? Hey, like he said, it wasn't this payroll thing. The media did not have access. Therefore, they did not like Michael Jordan. He had to be removed. Bring up the chosen one, LeBron James. And that's what you're seeing now. That's why you got the Malika Andrews of the world on there salivating over this man, LeBron James, talking every stat. Even though when we watch the games, we watch the Lakers play, we can clearly see that AD outplays him every single time. And that egregious in-season tournament, and by egregious, I don't mean a play, I don't mean the tournament itself, I don't mean the courts, because I loved all of that. I love the jerseys, I love the atmosphere. I mean the results. LeBron James and the Lakers winning the in-season tournament seemed scripted. I know it was scripted. And then he won tournament MVP when we all know AD outplayed him the entire tournament and also the championship game versus the Pacers. AD consistently outplays him. The Lakers play better with LeBron off court, but the media lies to you and tells you that LeBron has the highest plus minus. He's a plus whatever while he's on the court. The Lakers are a lot better. They tell you all this BS when we can clearly see with the eye test that LeBron hurts that team. Let's just keep it 100. They are a bottom feeding team. As we currently speak, I believe they're number 9 in the West. And if this was 2-3 years ago, they wouldn't even be in the playoff seeding. It's crazy, right? But they're talking about LeBron as if he's an MVP right now. And we all know he isn't. The man is too flawed and has been too flawed his entire career, and is showing up in his latter years because his athleticism is starting to decline. Now, it's not declining on a normal level that we see most players decline, but it's still declining, and you can visibly see that. Crazy, right? But let this man carry on.
I want to play you this clip of Shannon Sharpe and Kendrick Perkins basically having an on-air fight. And maybe you saw this. They're having an on-air fight about who's been a groupie longer and better for LeBron James. This is unprecedented. Play the clip.
You are there with the Clippers? Time out. You just hopped on this LeBron train. I've been on this train since 2001. You forgot. Now let me go take you in history. Me and LeBron played together. Me and LeBron was in the Mickey D's class. So when it comes to being an advocate for LeBron James, you just joined the family reunion. You just got you a side of the
I can't tell.
You
guess what?
Well, telling me.
Well, guess what, Perk?
Nothing about advocating for LeBron.
Wow. These two grown-ass men. And Kendrick Perkins, he's an ex-Oklahoma City Thunder player. Y'all know the Thunder to my boys, man. Shout out to my boys, man. Hey, the youth movement, #1 in the West. Gotta love it, you feel me? But on the cool, Kendrick Perkins, being an ex-Oklahoma City Thunder player, bruh, you embarrassing the entire fan base. These two grown-ass men are sitting in front of a national television audience and are arguing over another man. That is disturbing. But let this man carry on.
I can't. I've never understood it with Shannon Sharpe because he's such an elite, accomplished athlete, 3-time Super Bowl winner, Hall of Fame tight end, was a serious athlete in the NFL, unquestioned accomplishments. I've never understood why he became a groupie for LeBron James, other than it worked as a television stick opposite Skip Bayless. But it just never struck me as like, I've never seen an athlete do this to himself.
Now, here's the first and only lie that I've seen Jason Whitlock tell throughout the entirety of this entire podcast. There is no way that you cannot see this coming from Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe is zesty as hell, and he's pushing that effeminate male agenda. That agenda to feminize men and make them hella emotional, hella liberal, hella soft, and blur the lines between men and women. He is a status symbol at this point for that. Look what he called his podcast, Club Shay Shay. You are a grown ass man calling yourself Shay Shay. If that is not zesty, I don't know what is.
Kendrick Perkins, marginal or journeyman NBA player, played on the same McDonald's All-American team with LeBron James. I understand it a bit more. Kendrick Perkins, neither one of these guys have the best verbal presentation, but I just can't believe accomplished masculine athletes are debating, who has served LeBron better and longer on national TV. It blows my mind.
In actuality, I think the exact opposite. I think if you put Shannon Sharpe and Kendrick Perkins in a lineup and you talk to both of them, the one that you would come out of that conversation thinking was the more masculine one would probably be Kendrick Perkins. And I'm not just saying that because he played for my favorite team, the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm saying that because the man just seems like a more masculine person. Let's just keep it 100. Now, does he have those traits where it seems like he was raised by his grandma, like she swaddled him, don't whoop my baby type of vibes? Yeah, he does have that. But I met a lot of dudes like that, had some homies who was like that, and they wasn't zesty. They grew out of that by coming outside and hanging with the fellas. You grow up and grow out of that and start to develop those masculine traits from being swaddled. You know what I'm saying? But Shannon Sharpe, just off the rip, just seemed like a man fan, like a dude who stayed riding dudes nuts. And just because the man played in the NFL does not qualify him to be the epitome of what we consider masculine. It actually portrays the opposite. Let's just keep it 100. But overall, I'm saying this to say this. Kendrick Perkins is the one who is more surprising.
All I heard was, I've been on LeBron's jock longer than you. No. I've been on his jock better than you. Yeah, not exactly cool Modi against LL Cool J, huh?
Well said, Mr. Co-host. Now, I don't know exactly who he is. If you know, let me know down in the comment section. But that's kind of what I heard from them as well. Now, let me break this all down for y'all, man. And then I'll let y'all get up out of here. Of course, we all know that Michael Jeffrey Jordan is the GOAT, is the number one player to ever play in the NBA. And that is not debatable at all. In my personal opinion, I don't even believe that LeBron James is a top 5 all-time great. I don't believe he's a top 10 all-time great. And if y'all want to know my top 10, let me know down in the comment section and I'll put that out there. But media pundits like Kendrick Perkins, like Shannon Sharpe, like Malika Andrews, and the rest of them, they are doing nothing but pushing a narrative. I don't even believe that they believe half of the stuff that's coming out of their mouth, and I know that they think it's flat out ridiculous. But for Kendrick Perkins, as a competitor, to be all on this man's jock like this, when you were facing this man in finals, man, that really makes one question how hard were you really going? Especially in that series with the Thunder, when the Thunder lost to the Heat. Were you inner idolizing LeBron James? Or was you giving it 110% like we needed you to win that chip? I mean, I don't know. But I will say this, man. With all this stuff that ESPN pushes, it lets me know that the ones who run Disney, the ones who run ESPN are deeply rooted within certain societies that cultivate the world and sororities where they groom these children up. They are followers of Zeus, Kronos, Bacchus, and other deities that applaud this type of behavior, this type of lifestyle. I truly believe that Disney follows pederasty, and we'll do an entire video on who and what deity pederasty was. But if you really do your research, you start to understand who Zeus, Apollo, and the rest of those Greek gods and goddesses truly were and what they stood for. Then when you review network television, the CEOs, colorful analysts, and the entire corporation from top to bottom, you start to see how deeply embedded they are with these certain deities and these religions, should I call them, and how they are rooted in paganism. You start to see how they correlate. And like I said, we'll break all that down eventually. But Jason Whitlock, in this podcast, exposed to y'all how LeBron James puppeteers these analysts and controls them, because LeBron James is being viewed as the chosen one, the next one up. Pay attention. Don't let that go over y'all heads. But y'all know I will be back with another one, family.